Perfect. So, quick little background on me. My name is Nikki Hamansic. I am a personal trainer and certified nutritionist as well. So, I went to Durham College for promotion. That's where I got my diploma, which allowed me to get my CSEP CPT, so Canadian Society of Exercise Physiology. I currently hold my NASM for CPT as well as my Precision Nutrition Level 1 for nutrition. Been in the industry since about 2009. I grew up playing competitive sports that really created this passion for me. I've worked with a lot of diverse populations over the years and done a lot of different courses and education throughout my time. I really developed a passion over the last few years of working with females in that peri-post-menopause state. There is just not enough out there in terms of education, and that's my big passion is I want to educate and help people to feel more comfortable and be able to kind of get through this new point in their life with a little more ease. Um, so always taking new courses to stay up to date and expand my knowledge. I'm gonna change the layout so you don't have to see my face here. So just the PowerPoint is all you'll see. All right, oops. Perfect. So what exactly is menopause? Menopause is technically 12 months after your last period. So officially, menopause is just a single day. Usually, perimenopause is that 4 to 5 years leading where symptoms start to kind of manifest. We start to notice some changes. Often, you'll hear menopause kind of a blanket term for that peri and post menopause. So, technically, menopause is just one day. However, we'll say menopause when we're talking about kind of peri and post. So basically, what's happening is hormones are starting to fluctuate out of the regular cycles. And because our body constantly wants to be in a balanced state, it's trying to get back to that homeostasis. So it is triggering symptoms, and our body is basically working differently and trying to adapt to these changes in hormones. So estrogen receptors are also becoming less effective and efficient. So we have less receptors in our body and they don't work as well as they used to. So estrogen and progesterone eventually kind of flatline. And that's why if you do blood work in that perimenopause state, blood work doesn't necessarily tell you much unless you've been consistently doing blood work. Where after you are into postmenopause, you officially hit menopause, you will be able to kind of tell with blood work because of how low that estrogen and progesterone are. Every woman does experience things differently and in different times. So even though there's kind of a general guideline as to when people often get into menopause, it is different for everyone. So it can be earlier or later. And there's also something called medical menopause. So this is when we go through surgery, which can be for many different reasons and at different stages in our life. So surgery removing the uterus and or ovaries, causing immediate menopause. So this again will look different for everyone. And when that happens and why that happens may be different for everyone as well. So this is kind of a little graph showing before menopause. Our regular cycles, you'll see it is a normal kind of cycle where our estrogen and progesterone kind of go opposite of each other. Our LH and FSH spike up during ovulation and come back down. So it's a pretty regular cycle. Then we get into that perimenopause here, where everything kind of goes into chaos. There's no rhyme or rhythm, there is no pattern. It is just all over the place. And this is creating those symptoms that we experience. Once we've hit menopause, we'll see that FSH and LH kind of stay up top and then the estrogen progesterone flatline. These are some overview and some interesting facts. I'm not going to stay here too long, but there's a lot of interesting facts here on menopause. Basically, 45 to 55 years old is average age, but really it can be earlier and later. It's not always within those years. As our, healthcare system, we're living longer, which means menopause is happening for more of our lives because we're living longer. A lot of symptoms really, really affect day-to-day life for females. 3 out of 4 women experience menopausal symptoms that interfere with their daily lives. 1 in 10 actually will stop working because of unmanaged symptoms. So some really really interesting facts here and hopefully making you realize that you're not alone in this. And it can be a scary time. There's a lot of unknowns, but what I really hope you guys take away from this is it's not the end, it's the beginning. So there's no cure for menopause because menopause isn't a disease. It's a natural biological transition anyone with ovaries will go through. Silver lining, no more periods. I'm sure we all hit that spot in our teenage years where we had our period and we thought, oh my God, my world is exploding. My world is ending. This is horrible. Now we don't have to deal with periods. So there's a bonus. Um, Basically, our bodies are always changing throughout life, and menopause is no different. We just have to adapt how we adjust and manage our symptoms and how we basically do some of the things in our lives because our body isn't functioning the same way it used to. It's just learning a new balance. That's all we're doing here. So, looking at this picture, you might see some symptoms that stand out to you that maybe you resonate with. But there's lots of different symptoms, and everyone experiences them differently. So, you're not alone. There's maybe things on here that you didn't even think were a symptom of menopause, but there is no right or wrong with menopause. Everything is different for each person, but there are some answers. So if you are wondering, am I in postmenopause? These are some questions that can help us establish if maybe we are getting into that. One, what's your current age? What was your mother's age at menopause? If you know that, usually it's very similar. Um, is your cycle normal? Is it starting to kind of get out of whack? Is it longer, shorter? Are we missing periods? And is the bleeding unusual? Are we usually a light bleeder? Now we're a heavy bleeder, or vice versa? Any changes to those things can show us that our hormones are fluctuate out of their normal rhythms. It can affect all of our aspects of life. And this is really important. And I think people sometimes don't understand how it can affect our life in different ways. So relational, existential, mental, physical, emotional, environmental, all of those areas can be affected by deep health. Oh, sorry, by menopause. So that deep health, digging into those aspects of our life. But this is an interesting one to kind of say, where do you notice it the most? Maybe it's in all of them. Maybe it's in only in some of them. Um, Good news is we can address changes to help all of these aspects. So, do some of these stand out to you as to where you're noticing some changes in your life? So, stress, sleep, nutrition, physical, emotional, social, mental, all of those aspects, we can um, we can address kind of some different habits or different things to help manage those areas if we're noticing that menopause symptoms are affecting those. So this is a big one, and I am going to go through again fairly fast with a lot of these slides, and I know you guys might want to hear more. So don't worry, there will be future webinars, and I will dive more into detail in the future. So right now, I just want to make sure you're getting as much information as you can today to kind of understand the different aspects and the different options that are out there. But really making sure that you educate yourself and you ask the questions before making decisions. So MHT is menopause hormone therapy. You'll also hear it called HRT, hormone replacement therapy. However, it's really important to note that we're not actually replacing hormones. There are different types of estrogen. Um, the estrogen, estradiol, is our main strong estrogen that we use throughout most of our life before menopause. After we go into menopause, estrone, our weakest estrogen, becomes our dominant one. So overall, no matter what, the estrogen is lower, but also our estrogen receptor. So that is where we're actually being able to utilize and communicate throughout all of our body systems. So it does affect all those areas that you saw in that previous slide. The receptors are not only less of them, but they're less efficient as well. So even to if we were to able to replace that estrogen and get the estrogen to the same levels, the receptors are not functioning the same way. So it does not kind of put us to that state of pre-menopause. There's many options out there that depend on your symptoms and your medical history. So it's really, really important to have this discussion with your doctor, ask questions, because there's a lot of different hormone therapies out there as well. So you can have estrogen only, progesterone, or both. They come in different ways, pills, gels, patches, etc. MHT is the most effective for things like hot flashes and night sweats. So some of those vasomotor symptoms that we'll experience. It may also help with vaginal dryness, mood, and sleep issues or disturbances. It can be helpful for symptoms affecting quality of life, but not for improving body composition or bone density. So that's really important to know. People think that we will be able to kind of get back to that pre-menopause state by incorporating these hormones. It's not quite how it works, but it can help to alleviate symptoms. So it's important to understand that difference. It can help prevent, it won't treat, but it can help prevent osteoporosis. But it won't improve that bone density. It just prevents that breakdown that we often experience as we get older. It can, again, it can help with the fat loss, so preventing that weight gain, but not necessarily improving our ability to build lean mass. So if you're under 27% body fat and you're active, it can help a little bit with that fat loss, but it's not going to change our ability to build our fat-free mass, our lean mass. And that's really important for a lot of things that I'll kind of address a bit later. Different types of MHT are associated with different risks as well. So again, really important to talk to a medical professional that knows your health history. So risks can vary with age, hysterectomy status, so whether or not you've had that surgery where you've removed anything with ovaries or your uterus, and any pre-existing health conditions. So it's really important because there are some risks potentially. Increased risk of blood clots is with the pills, significantly decreases with the patch. So again, there's different modalities as well and different ways to administer the hormone therapy. Increased risk of ALS and dementia is if it's started after 60 years old. So I will touch on this in a second. Breast cancer is a small risk, but it increases the longer you take it. And it's also a less risk with the estrogen only option. Again, a lot of this research and studies and trials are so new because unfortunately, it's most studies through medical stuff has all been on males. So very little females are actually incorporated in a lot of these clinical trials. So with menopause and a lot of the older female population with these clinical trials, they're still ongoing. So we don't have all the answers. Current guidelines as of 2022, acceptable treatment for healthy but symptomatic women within 10 year of that transitional perimenopause stage and taken for a shorter time. So if you're within 10 years of menopause and you're taking MHT for a shorter time, there are very little risks. So the longer we take it and the later we take it, the more risk that there comes. There are some non-hormone options. So things like antidepressants and epilepsy drugs do things in the body that help us communicate differently. For instance, antidepressants, SNRI, serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, is effective for mood and hot flashes. It basically helps the brain communicate with the body that everything is okay. So it helps alleviate some of that stress response that can trigger our mood and hot flashes. Epilepsy drugs also help with that as well, with reducing the free estrogen circulating in the body. So different medications do different things in the body. Again, this is why it's really important to discuss with your doctor and talk about you, your symptoms, your medical history to establish what might be the best option for you. Now, there's also a lot of supplements that are very safe for most people. Adaptogens is a big one. So basically what adaptogens are is natural plants or mushrooms that increase resistance to physical, chemical, and biological stresses. So they help us adapt to stressors, which is kind of where that name comes from. Generalized outcomes. So again, there's quite a few of them that do different things, but a lot of the generalized outcome you'll notice is improved mood, performance and focus, reduction in hormonal mediated symptoms. So that's where we're talking about things like puberty, PCOS, menopause. They often target the HPA axis. So basically our brain to regulate those key mediators in a stress response to all of the cells. So what that means is it's helping the brain communicate to the rest of our body when there is a stress that we feel, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, doesn't matter. How our body reacts to stress is often the same, regardless of what that stress is. That decreased sensitivity to stressors. So that's what it's helping us do. We're adapting to that stress response. It does take time. So it can take up to a couple weeks to build in the system. And that's why adaptogens do have to be taken for a little bit to sometimes really see and feel the results. It should be cycled for that reason as well, because it's helping us kind of adapt. And then we don't want to kind of get used to certain things. We want to keep that adaptogen to be effective. Common cycles are 3 weeks on, few days off, or you might do like 6 to 7 weeks on, few days off. There's not often a set rule for cycles. So as long as you're doing it for a few weeks and then taking a few days off every few weeks, then that will help us still keep that adapting. And it's also really good to start taking these before you get into menopause. So if you're not quite there yet, this is great. If you are, no worries, it is still effective. Uh, so here are some examples of different adaptogens and kind of how they work a little different. So there are some that are a little more stimulatory. So they might give you energy. Those ones are often better to take in the morning, afternoon, and maybe not in the evening. These ones for stress and fatigue. So Siberian ginseng, not Panax ginseng. That is often the common one you'll see in supplements in stores. So watching for that. Schisandra chinesis, maca, the red Peruvian maca specifically is better for menopause. There's a couple different ones. Rhodiola rosea, and then we have some calming ones that are really good for anxiety, stress, and immunity. Rhodiola rosa also has a good effect in this, but it can create stimulatory responses. So that's the only reason I separated that. So ashwagandha and holy basil are good for that calming effect. And some mushroom adaptogens that also have some really good benefits. We have reishi, cordyceps, chaga, and lion's mane. I really want to touch on creatine a little bit because there's a lot of misconceptions, but it is such a phenomenal supplement, especially for females in menopause. What exactly is it? So it's a natural compound of amino acids in the body. It provides energy to the muscles and the brain. So this is a really good one to note. It's not just our muscles and our body, it's our brain as well that's helping feed that ATP. So it helps regenerate our phosphocreatine in the body. So ATP is what we're kind of talking about here. It's in our body, it's our currency for energy in order to move, to digest food, to use our brain. So even just thinking really hard, we're using ATP. So when we don't have enough of it, which we don't as females going through menopause, we no longer store it as well in our muscles. So that's why creatine is such an amazing supplement. It's very effective for different things. And it's one of the longest studied supplements. This is a really good thing to know. It's been studied so much, and we've kind of debunked a lot of those negative risks that we thought came with it. So 3 to 5 grams per day is the um, general guideline for taking creatine. There is more research coming out now that menopausal women can take up to zero point 0.3 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. So what that looks like, I gave a little example here on some math. So if you're 140 pounds, 63.64 kilograms, we do the math, zero point 0.3 grams per body weight of kilogram. That would be 19 grams of creatine a day. That sounds like a lot, but it is doing a lot in the body, and we are not producing it enough. And we also don't intake enough from food. So most people that eat meat can get 1 to 2 grams of creatine from their food. Not enough to give us the responses that we need. What it's going to help with. So it helps building that lean muscle, that fat-free mass. It improves our strength, our bone density, and brain function. A lot of times, if you're one of those people that have mood swings or that cognitive, that brain fog, this is one of those things that can help with focus. Studies on females actually showing no significant increase in weight over the 10 weeks with lifting 4 days a week. So this was a study that was showing it didn't have a significant increase in fat-free mass in that, oh, sorry, but it didn't have a significant increase in overall weight, but in their fat-free mass, it did. So they were able to basically increase their fat-free mass and decrease their fat while maintaining their weight. And that kind of debunks the whole bulking that a lot of people are concerned about. What they've seen is the studies that they actually saw the bulking happen was only when males specifically took a high dose of carb and protein loading with the creatine. So if you want that bulk effect, it is possible, but it is very challenging to actually get that. Monohydrate and HCl are both effective and will not create that bulk. So the bottom here, there is a little link to uh, the research article where that came from if you wanted to take a look. All right, really important one is training. So basically, when we lose those estrogen receptors, we no longer adapt to our training the way we used to. We need external stress to cause functioning at their peak, but also our receptors are not as effective. So traditional training methods are not adequate for improving bone density, muscle, or body composition. We need a higher intensity training to improve insulin sensitivity. So this helps decrease that fat mass and increase our lean mass. A lot of females will notice that weight gain where they're not changing their training or their nutrition, but they're gaining fat. So, some key factors that we want to make sure we're incorporating in our training is heavy lifting. So, 6 reps or less with good form. If you're new to lifting, then yes, we want to increase those reps to teach those proper movement patterns first to make sure you're safe and progressively increase that strength training and work up to that 6 reps. Sprint training. So, that is 30 seconds or less of max effort intensity with longer rests in between. HIIT training, you've probably heard that high intensity interval training. So this can be some longer high intensity bouts with rest periods. It can be circuit style training with a little rest in between. And then plyometrics and multi-directional movements are really important for improving bone density as well as cognitive factors. So it helps with the brain as well. Deloading every 2 weeks. So this is more often than we're probably used to because now we have more inflammation with the body. More recovery focus is needed because of that. Oftentimes you'll hear, before menopause that sometimes working with your cycles, at the end of the day, it's really good to just listen to your body. The more you can be in tune with your body and feel where you're at and what you have for capacity and energy that day is a really good way to deload week as well. If you're still in perimenopause and still getting a period, maybe you can do it every 3 weeks. But regardless of who you are, if you're strength training, you should be deloading every 3 weeks anyways. So a deload basically means you're not going as intense, as heavy, and you're decreasing the volume a little bit. Minimum effective results, we need at least 2 days of heavy lifting, 1 day of sprints, 1 day of HIIT per week. Now, these can go in together. You can do a heavy lifting with a sprint after. You can do a heavy lifting with a HIIT after. If you're someone that works out more than, 2 or 3 days a week, then making sure you're incorporating at least 2 days of recovery. And that recovery can still be like a nice little walk. It doesn't have to be a full rest day if you are a very active person normally. So really quick, I just wanted to show some examples of kind of how this might look. So this is one of the case studies from Dr. Stacy Sims' course. This one specifically is just for general fitness. So just a female, she's a doctor, so she has a really busy schedule and she just wants to kind of stay active and stay healthy and have energy and sleep good. So you'll notice that Monday is a busy day for her. So we hope that she sleeps in. We give her a little optional if she wants to do some like intervals for running because she likes running. She does her early morning boot camp because that works for her. She has a quick little smoothie after, and then she has her long day again. Wednesday's an off day because it's a super long day for her, but she does incorporate some evening yin yoga, something restorative, something easy, something gentle on the body, and something to kind of depress that sympathetic nervous system so she can wind down easily at the end of her day and then be rested and rejuvenated for that next day where she can go a little harder. So again, she's going to do a little boot camp, optional run if she wants to do something or even a hike, more for mental health. Friday is an easy day, something social. Saturday, she enjoys her little CrossFit, so we keep that in. And then Sunday is an off day or something easy. So it just kind of goes to show really 3 days of intense exercise is all you need. And then having some restorative stuff in there as well. If you are someone that's really into serious lifting, same idea. We're kind of focusing on, 3 days of heavy lifting with some mobility and with some other functional stuff in there. And then runners, making sure you're looking at your days to make sure you're not doing super hard every single day or moderate. If you're doing moderate intensity every single day, you are not going to get the results you want. Your body is not going to get the stimulus it needs for that change to happen in the body. Yeah, we kind of call this like running on the hamster wheel where we're working and not seeing results. So this is where we really hone into where's our intense days, where's our easy days, and making sure that we're getting recovery in there too. Keeping in mind with ultra running or long distance running, you do have to kind of periodize this a little bit because you will have to work up to really long distances. So there is a periodization factor in that, but making sure that we're getting deload weeks, lowering volume so we get the recovery we need. All right, nutrition. So big part here because it affects so much of our body. Big thing I always touch on with my clients is getting minimally processed foods. You'll notice here it actually affects a lot of the brain as well. So having fiber, healthy fats, phytonutrients, so that's talking about like vitamins and minerals from fruits and vegetables, good sources of protein. This all helps with our brain function. At the end of our day, the brain is telling our bodies what to do. So if we're looking after our brain, it kind of will fall into a lot of other aspects. This is a nice plate to kind of show you what your plate should look like. So we do have proteins, a nice blend and variety. We have some whole grains, so good fiber, and then lots of fruits and vegetables. You'll notice there's sweet potatoes in here. There are some higher carb ones in here, and that's okay. Peas, edamame, things like that are great. It's getting lots of different colors, so we're getting such a diverse nutrient profile with something like this. And then, of course, you see that water. We want to stay well hydrated. So, here are some big factors with nutrition and how it's going to affect us as we get into and through menopause. Biggest body comp changes usually start 3 to 4 years before we hit menopause. LEA is something I wish I could dive more into today because it's more common than people think. So, low energy availability. The tricky thing with this is it has the same symptoms as menopause. I'm going to touch on this one first because I really want to dive into some important factors here. Decreasing insulin sensitivity, reduced anabolic stimuli, so not responding to our usual protein intake and training methods. So protein timing and nutrient timing is really important for us as well now in menopause. Increased baseline cortisol, so stress reactions. Our body is a little more reactive to stress, therefore more inflammation. Our sympathetic nervous system is more kind of chaos, haywire. We're always in that fight or flight and not allowing our body to calm and work in its normal balance. Estrogen dominance switch. So now, like I said, that strong estradiol is no longer as potent. And now we're using more of our E2 estrone, which is a weaker one. So there's more inflammatory responses. Altered gut microbiome is also a really big factor and how it affects a lot of our body. So first, I'm going to try to dive in a little here because I want it to make sense, and it might be a little overwhelming, a lot of information. So again, this will be recorded, and there will be more webinars diving into some things more specifics. But low energy availability, that's what LEA stands for. First of all, daily energy expenditure. So this is our energy intake. Take away our energy expenditure. Energy expenditure also includes just breathing and digesting food. It does use calories to do those things. Just simple bodily functions utilize our calories. So that leaves us with our energy availability. LEA is when we are not taking in enough calories to sustain our bodily functions and then our extra exercise and activity on top of that. Because what happens when we start to see this weight gain is psychologically, we think we have to train more and eat less. And that is how this kind of vicious cycle comes into play. So now we're not getting enough calories to sustain, and our body will start to shut down. Suppression of hormone function. So LH, estradiol, testosterone, progesterone, leptin, all the hormones that kind of make our body function properly will start to suppress and not work. Suppressed of bone formation. So now we're also decreasing our bone density because we do not have the calories to sustain. Continual suppression can cause irreversible reductions in these. So with only 4 days in LEA, it can actually onset thyroid dysfunction. Not to say we cannot fix or correct that, but it can create a long-term challenge. So something to kind of give you a little bit, this will be some math, but hopefully I don't lose you here. So fat-free mass is basically our weight minus our fat. So if you know your body fat percentage, then we can figure this one out fairly easily. So I put an example there of kind of a general population here, potentially. This is a pretty average female, 150 pounds, 30% body fat. That's 100 pounds of fat-free mass, so 54.4 kilograms. Sorry, I missed that. Okay. Ideal intake is 45 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass. So if you're 150 pounds at 30% body fat, your actual healthy intake of calories is 2,358. Now, into LEA, that low energy availability, that same body weight, body fat is 1,572 calories a day. So that's not enough calories to sustain what our body needs. What happens? Endocrine dysfunction, so decreased training response, metabolic disruption, decreased endurance performance, our metabolism will no longer function the way it's supposed to. Bone health, increased risk of bone stress injuries, decreased functional immunity, so we're more likely to get sick and prone to infection. Gut malfunction, we're no longer able to absorb nutrients as well, and that will go into all these other issues as well. Decreased neuromuscular coordination. So risk of injury, our coordination is not as good. Psychological impact. So the inability to recognize the risk developing. This is what I was discussing a little bit before. We get the mentality that because we're not seeing results, we have to train more and eat less. And that creates that LEA, which is now creating all of these other dysfunctions in our body. What do we do? So gradual increase of calories, keeping the calories close to the workout when we increase, and decrease training volume gradually if you are overtraining. So this is really important, and this can be challenging psychologically, and that's why I kind of put that in that last part. Psychologically, this is going to be really hard because it just doesn't make sense to eat more and train less, but that is potentially what might need to happen. And then we have to make sure that we're gradually doing it so our body starts to adapt. Getting those calories close to the workout will help the body to say, hey, I know I'm going to be getting nutrients, and it will start to kind of release that stickiness of holding on. Insulin sensitivity. So, like I said, this is another thing that we'll start to potentially notice as we get into perimenopause, menopause. This is why HIIT and sprints is so important. It actually increases our glucose uptake. So we're utilizing our carbs more effectively and we're getting rid of the stored fats a little better. That kind of simplifies that. Good carb sources. So carbs are not the enemy and we don't want to cut them out. We actually want them. Keeping them closer around the workouts because that's when we're mostly utilizing them. And real food, the less processed, the better. Decreasing those added sugars, increasing that fiber. So these are just some kind of ideas on some good options. So reducing our anabolic stimuli, because it's reduced, we need to make sure we increase our protein and adjust that training. So again, that heavier lifting, that higher intensity, and then increasing our overall protein. A good goal is 1 gram per pound of body weight. Variety of sources is good. We get a more broader source of amino profiles. So this is showing a few different options and some plant-based as well if you don't eat meat. Altered gut microbiome. So this is really big and a lot of people don't even realize it's happening. So it causes inflammation in our body. It decreases our energy and causes that fatigue. It decreases our nutrient absorption. So we're not able to absorb the nutrients from the food that we're eating. The endocrine system and HPA axis. So again, the brain, it's not signaling things properly. Our hormones aren't going to function properly to signal that. So ghrelin is a stomach hormone that signals the increase of food intake. So if things are not functioning, it might be telling us that we need to eat more food, but in reality, we might not. Neural and brain dysfunction. So even fine motor skills, cognition, depression, anxiety, those also stem from having an altered gut microbiome. It decreases in estradiol and progesterone, increase that permeability of gut barrier. So this is called microbial translocation. What it means is the bug guts kind of seep out into the body. So we don't want them there. That's where they end up, and it causes a little bit of uh, diverse, something we don't want. Fiber will help prevent that bad bacteria from colonizing. So basically, we have good bacteria and bad bacteria in our gut, and we want to make sure that that ratio is good. It is involved in the synthesis of neurotransmitters. So when our brain kind of tells our body things, acetylcholine, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, so energy, mood, those are affected here. So a healthy, diverse gut microbiome, it's going to improve that neural and brain tissue growth, improve body composition, improve bone density and remodeling, increase nutrient absorption and utilization, better sleep, improve our antioxidant system, so basically our immune system. And then our Firmicutes phylla is that bad bacteria that we want to lower. And bacteroidetes is our good bacteria that we want to have more of. So we want that ratio to be higher in the bacteroidetes and lower in the Firmicutes. These are some different ways that we can help promote a good balance. So in the gut, we're looking at probiotics. These are actually some strains that are helpful for females specifically, immunity and vaginal health, immune support, and more with the vaginal health. Lower gut is the prebiotic. So this is the fiber, fruits, veggies, grains. The more variety, the better. So lots of colors, whole grain, ancient grain, nuts and seeds, get a little bit of everything and you'll get a better balance. So again, this helps to balance that ratio. All right, so we'll get into our Q&A here. Let's bring this back. Ooh. All right. See. Boop, boop. I'm gonna try to unmute everyone. All right, so you should have the ability to unmute if you have any questions. So again, I went through a lot of stuff really fast. There will be more webinars where we can dive more into specific things. But I'd love to ask if anyone has any questions, of course, but if anything kind of hit home or maybe there was something you're like, oh, wow, that makes some sense.
Hi. I didn't want to
Hi,
cut anyone off.
no worries.
Um, I had no idea about the creatine, like no
Yeah.
idea at all. So I found that really interesting. That we should have at least 3 to 5 grams per day, but depending on weight, I mean, we could have 16, 17, etc. grams per day. I had
Hmm.
no idea. So
Yeah.
that's the big thing that I learned. Thank you.
Good, good.
I was gonna say the same thing about the creatine because I've started taking 5 grams,
Yep.
but doing the quick math with my phone, I should be taking like 23 grams. So like that
Yeah.
is 4 times more than what I have been taking.
Yeah.
So
It
that
is
sounds
good
like a
to kind
lot.
of work up to it.
That's what I was thinking. I
Um,
probably will do like a little bit, not just like boom, or else
yeah,
I'll probably
yeah,
live in the bathroom, and that
yeah.
wouldn't be ideal. And the adaptogens was helpful too. You hear words and like now that I'm going through this kind of stuff, I feel like my news feed on social media keeps popping up with things. Is that
Yeah.
actually helpful or is it not? So it's nice to kind of see what might merit more attention over other things that just like pop up that could be more of like a scam than other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree with you.
It was a
Yeah.
helpful start. That's for
Good,
sure.
Yes.
good. Again, it was more just kind of touching on the iceberg of some of these things, but adaptogens, like I have a whole thing of notes on like the more specifics and dosing and what the different ones do. So that is definitely on my list to kind of target a specific webinar for that. And LEA is a big one that a lot of my clients are actually going through. And trying to slowly kind of wean them out of that LEA is a process. And it can be psychologically really challenging because it's frustrating.
Hmm. The body changes. I didn't realize how much I'm at the beginning of my journey still ish, but
Yeah.
it's amazing how things that used to work don't. And things that used to be able
Yeah.
to do for exercise, my body just can't do that many days in a row. And it used
Hmm.
to be growing up, just push through, you'll be fine. And now the body's like, no, you won't be. You can't do
Yeah.
this. And it's mentally hard to take a break and then not be able to like make that back and know it's okay.
Hmm.
Right. So to
Yeah.
hear like it's okay, listen to your body is helpful. But finding the balance will be challenging, right?
Exactly.
I'll stop
Exactly.
talking now.
All good. All right. Well,
Well,
does
I,
anyone
I'm
have
just,
any?
if I can comment, I'm just going
Yeah.
to comment. Since I started my journey with you, I just want to say that I feel so much better
Good.
and huge difference in energy.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to convince my husband to do the same.
And Carol, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but like your body composition and your strength gains have been so remarkable over the
Well,
last
thank
while.
you. No, that's encouraging. I don't mind that at all.
So
I
you're
find
doing
it
awesome, Carol. You're
challenging.
doing awesome.
Yeah, I find it challenging, especially around Christmas. I think it was very difficult to stay on
Yeah,
track. But I'm trying. I'm trying. We'll see.
you're doing awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions at all?
How often are you going to be doing these webinars?
I'm not totally sure.
Okay.
Probably maybe along quarterly. Um, I do also plan on doing, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but like a interactive in-person workshop in Almonville here, where it will be a lot into a lot of the different aspects and working through and answering questions throughout different topics and working through it all. And then hopefully getting some like door prizes and things like that as well. So it'll be more like a event. But I do plan on doing more of the webinars where we focus on kind of specific things. Um, so yeah, don't have a specific date, but I will keep it in my newsletter and I will email when I do have dates.
Okay, great.
Awesome. All right. If there's no more questions, I'll kind of wrap it up. So thank
Okay.
you so much, everyone, for coming.